Myra had always been careful. Life on Station Orion 9 demanded it. Every day she cleaned floors, fixed lights, and made sure the station stayed operational. She was nobody special, just a human in a place full of beings far older, stronger, and smarter than she could ever imagine. Humans were considered weak, fragile, and replaceable. Myra had accepted it. She moved quietly, never asking for attention, never taking risks. But that day was different. The alarms had begun without warning. Red lights flashed across the metal corridors, sending a cold glow onto the walls. The station shuddered as if something deep inside it had stirred. Myra was on a routine check near the restricted sector. She had been told never to go there alone, but she never imagined the danger would come this fast or this suddenly. A loud crash echoed from the hallway. Sparks jumped from a broken console. Myra's heart thumped in her chest. She ran, her boots clanging on the metallic floor, each step faster than the last. Panic made her fingers sweat, her breathing quickened, and yet a strange determination pushed her forward. She could not stop. She would not stop. And then it happened. The floor beneath her was slick. A puddle of coolant, forgotten, unnoticed, made her footing treacherous. Myra's boots slipped. Her arms flailed. She tried to grab the edge of a railing, but it gave way under her weight. The world disappeared. She fell. The fall felt endless. Wind tore at her hair, screamed past her ears, and left her throat dry and raw. Myra tried to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the void. Her heart pounded so loud it felt like the only sound in the universe. Time seemed to stretch, a cruel joke that made each second last forever. Impact came suddenly. Pain exploded in her leg, her back, her arms. She landed on a hard, cold surface. The air smelled strange, metallic, damp, heavy. She tried to move, but every muscle protested. Her leg felt broken. Her hands scraped and burned against the rough ground. Her vision blurred. Panic threatened to drown her, and for a moment she thought, this is the end. They were right. No one escapes. But Myra was alive. She blinked, trying to focus. What she saw made her blood run cold. The place around her was unlike anything she had ever seen. Steel walls stretched endlessly into darkness, lit by faint blue glows that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was thick, making each breath a struggle. Shadows moved in ways that seemed impossible, twisting and stretching across the walls. The sound was worse. Faint whispers, groans, and the echoes of screams bounced off the walls, repeating, distorting, never-ending. Myra tried to stand. Pain shot up her leg. She stumbled, fell again, and groaned, but she forced herself to rise, one step, then another. Each movement was agony, yet she kept going. Something deep inside her refused to give up. Fear burned in her chest, but alongside it was a spark of defiance, a tiny flame that refused to die. And then she realized something terrifying. This place wasn't just big, it wasn't just dangerous, it was alive, it watched, it waited. The station she had known, the world she had known, no longer existed. Myra was inside something old, something designed to trap and destroy, something the galaxy feared. The Abyss Vault. Legends called it the prison no one escaped. No human had ever survived it. No human had ever returned to tell the story, and now Myra had fallen inside. Her first instinct was to scream, to cry, to call for help. But the shadows around her didn't move like normal. They didn't attack. They watched. And in that moment, Myra understood something terrifying. Survival here would not depend on strength alone. It would depend on something humans were told they lacked: courage, defiance, and a refusal to surrender. Myra took a deep, shuddering breath. She could stay down, she could give up. She could let this place consume her. But she didn't. One trembling step at a time, she moved forward into the darkness, into the unknown. She did not know what awaited her, what monsters lurked in the shadows, or what horrors the vault had stored for centuries. All she knew was one simple truth: if she stopped, she would die. If she moved, she might live. And for the first time, Myra realized something no one had ever told her. Being human was not about weakness. It was about surviving when everyone else would have given up. The vault was silent for now, but it had noticed her, and somewhere deep in its heart, it began to calculate. It had never faced a human like Myra. Not yet. Myra's legs shook with every step. The blue light stretched endlessly, reflecting on walls that seemed to breathe. The whispers grew louder, echoing around her like invisible voices mocking her fear. She stumbled over broken pipes and jagged metal. Every corner could hide death. Every shadow could be her last. Her mind raced. This place, it's alive. It knows I'm here. It's testing me. Then she heard it, a low growl vibrating through the floor. Myra froze. Her heart jumped into her throat. The growl grew louder, closer. Shadows shifted and two glowing eyes appeared in the dark. Not human, not anything she recognized. She tried to back away, but her leg buckled under the weight of pain. She fell, hitting her hand on a sharp edge. Blood trickled down her palm. The creature moved closer, its form twisting in the dim light. Long limbs, sharp claws, and a mouth full of teeth that could crush bone. Myra's breath caught. She had expected to die here. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The vault was endless. The walls seemed to stretch forever. And yet the creature stopped. It tilted its head, studying her, its growl softened, almost curious. Myra didn't understand. Was it waiting to attack, or waiting for something else? She slowly pulled herself to her feet, her hands trembling. "I'm not going to give up," she whispered. The words were barely audible, but in the vault, even whispers mattered, even defiance mattered. The creature circled her, moving with a grace that was terrifying. Myra raised a piece of broken pipe she had picked up earlier. It wasn't much, but it was something. She gripped it tightly, her knuckles white. Then the creature lunged. Myra swung the pipe with all her strength. The sound of impact echoed like a gunshot. The creature screeched, staggering back. Myra's heart pounded. "I can fight, I can survive." More eyes appeared in the darkness. Shadows shifted faster, and she realized she was surrounded. The vault was testing her, pushing her to her limits. Every step she had taken, every choice she had made had brought her here. Now she had to prove herself. She remembered the small lessons of human survival. Keep moving, don't panic, use what's around you. Every instinct humans had developed over thousands of years surged in her body. She was small, weak, fragile, but she was smart, fast, and unbroken. Hours passed like this. Myra ran through endless corridors, fought shadows and creatures that description, and never stopped moving. Every time she fell, she got up. Every time she was hurt, she endured. Every scream of the monsters only made her more determined. She learned quickly. Certain creatures avoided her after one swing. Others hesitated, sensing something unfamiliar. Humans were prey, yes, but prey that could fight, prey that could adapt, prey that could survive when nothing else could. By the end of the first day inside the vault, Myra was exhausted. Her body ached. Her wounds burned. Her mind teetered on the edge of panic. But she was alive. And for the first time, she realized something that made her blood run cold and her heart race with strange pride. The vault was not just a prison. It was a world of predators, and it had never seen a human like her before. The creatures began to whisper among themselves in ways she could not understand. They did not attack her as they had others. They studied her. They feared something they could not name, something that was not strength, not size, not teeth, but will. Myra pressed herself against the cold wall, panting. Her eyes scanned the endless corridors. She had no plan, no escape. But she had something far stronger, determination. Fear could kill her, yes, but courage, even in the smallest human heart, could defy monsters, defy the vault, defy death itself. And she was not afraid to fight. That night, as the blue lights flickered and the shadows moved like living nightmares, Myra lay in a corner, her broken body pressed against the cold floor. She listened. The creatures murmured. The vault hummed. And somewhere deep within its heart, it recognized something new, something it had never calculated before. A human, small, fragile, alone, and yet unstoppable. Myra closed her eyes. Pain throbbed through her leg, every muscle ached. She should have felt despair, she should have given in, but she did not. She took a deep, shuddering breath and whispered to the darkness, "I will survive, no matter what." And for the first time since she fell, Myra believed it. Because inside the vault, survival was not about escaping, it was about refusing to die. The darkness of the vault had become familiar, yet it never felt safe. Myra moved cautiously, every nerve alert, every sense stretched to its limit. Her leg throbbed with pain, her hands were scraped and bloody, but she refused to stop. The creatures had learned to watch her. They had learned to hesitate. For the first time, a human had forced the vault to notice something it had never considered. that a single, fragile human could defy its will. Then came the first real attack. A shadow moved faster than her eyes could follow. Teeth flashed, claws slashed. Myra barely dodged. The creature lunged again. Instinct took over. She grabbed the broken metal pipe she had been carrying, swung it with all the force her fear could generate. The pipe connected with the creature's skull with a sickening crack. The screech echoed through the endless halls. The vault fell silent. The other creatures froze. They had never seen prey strike back. They had never seen a human fight like that, not like Myra. They hesitated, watching, calculating. Myra's heart pounded, but she didn't allow herself relief. She ran, using the narrow corridors to her advantage, dodging, striking when she could. Every encounter made her stronger. Every fight sharpened her mind. Every moment forced her to remember the one truth she had learned. Humans survived when all hope seemed lost. For days, Myra adapted. She learned the rhythms of the vault, the patterns of the creatures. She drank from leaking pipes. She scavenged from dead monsters. Her wounds festered, but she treated them as best she could. Pain became a constant companion, but it could not stop her. Exhaustion threatened to pull her under, yet every time she stumbled, she forced herself to rise. And slowly, the vault began to change around her. Creatures no longer attacked on sight. Shadows that had once lunged now waited, hesitated, studied. There was fear in their eyes, something new, something alien. Myra did not understand it fully yet, but she could feel it. She was not just surviving. She was teaching the vault a new rule. Humans were not weak. Humans were unpredictable. Humans refused to die. Night came, or what passed for night, inside the vault. Myra pressed herself into a corner, trying to rest. Her body screamed at her to stop, but her mind refused. She could hear the whispers, the soft movement of things around her. They were watching, but not attacking. They were afraid. And that fear, strange and alien, was empowering. She thought of her family back on Orion 9, the quiet streets, the small home she had left behind. She had not expected to see them again. She had not expected to survive. But she was still here, alone, injured, trembling, but alive. And the thought filled her with something she had not felt before, determination, not just to survive, but to overcome. The following morning brought new challenges. A pair of monstrous hunters cornered her in a narrow tunnel. Their claws gleamed. Their jaws opened wide. Myra's heart raced. She gripped her pipe, her knuckles white. And then she remembered every lesson, every instinct, every tiny survival trick humans had perfected over centuries. She struck first. The creatures lunged, but she twisted, dodged, and countered. One fell with a final, echoing scream. The other hesitated, startled by the human's speed and ferocity. Myra struck again. The second hunter collapsed. The vault trembled. Something deep within it recognized the event. No human had ever killed its creatures like this. And in that moment, the monsters learned fear, not of pain, not of death, but of the human spirit. Myra did not exult. There was no time for pride. She was battered, bleeding, and alone, but she smiled faintly. She had survived. Against monsters designed to kill, against a prison meant to break her, she had survived. And for the first time, she understood the truth that humans had always known. Survival was more than strength. It was will, determination, and refusal to surrender. As she limped further into the vault, shadows retreating at her presence, Myra whispered to herself, "I will not die here. I will not. Not today, not ever." Somewhere deep in the heart of the abyss vault, the walls seemed to shiver. The creatures whispered among themselves in fear and confusion. And the vault, ancient and unyielding, calculated something it had never calculated before. A human could be more terrifying than any monster it had ever held. Myra pressed on, wounded but unbroken. The vault would continue to test her. Its monsters would continue to attack. But she had already won the first, most important battle. She had shown them that humans are not prey. Humans are the spark that refuses to die, even in the darkness of the universe. And in the vault, for the first time, that spark burned brightly. Myra had survived the first battles. She had proven herself against creatures that could crush her in a heartbeat. She had learned to move silently, strike precisely, and endure pain beyond reason. But the vault was not done. It had noticed her defiance, and nothing inside it tolerated defiance. That morning the ground trembled beneath her boots. A deep, vibrating hum filled the corridors, making her teeth chatter. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with life. The vault was preparing. Myra knew it before she even saw the first attack. It would not send a single monster, it would send everything. Gravity shifted suddenly, heavier, pressing against her chest and legs as though the floor itself wanted to crush her. Myra stumbled, barely keeping her balance. The creatures she had fought before emerged from the shadows, more organized now, moving in coordinated patterns. Their eyes glowed red with anticipation, their claws sharper than ever. She gritted her teeth. She could not let fear dominate. She could not give the vault the satisfaction of her failure. The first wave struck. Shadows lunged, claws slashing, jaws snapping. Myra twisted and swung the broken metal pipe in a wide arc. She hit, she ducked, she dodged, she ran. One monster after another fell, but more came. They poured from every corridor, filling the halls like a living tide. Pain tore through her body, but she refused to collapse. Hours turned into a blur. Myra's body screamed with exhaustion. Cuts burned, bones ached, muscles trembled. The creatures adapted quickly, learning her patterns. They coordinated, attacking from angles she had not yet considered. She stumbled into a narrow passage and felt her leg buckle under her weight. A predator, taller and faster than any she had fought, lunged at her. Its claws ripped the air around her, tearing the metal walls. Myra fell to her knees. She could barely lift the pipe. The predator roared, a sound that shook the vault itself. Myra's vision blurred with blood and sweat. For a moment, terror threatened to overwhelm her. She thought of surrendering, of letting the vault take her. But somewhere deep inside, a spark refused to die. Her mind raced. She searched the area looking for anything she could use. Her eyes landed on a glowing power cell discarded from some long-forgotten machinery. Her fingers reached for it, trembling. The predator advanced. Myra's hands shook as she gripped the cell. She had no choice. She had to fight or die. With a scream, she hurled the cell at the creature. The explosion rocked the corridor. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. The predator shrieked and fell, lifeless. The other monsters froze, shocked by the human's audacity. Myra gasped, choking on smoke and pain. She could barely stand. Her body was broken, but her spirit was unbroken. The vault reacted. Sections of walls shifted, ceilings lowered, and fire erupted from vents. The entire prison seemed alive, trying to crush, burn, or suffocate her. Myra ran blindly, dodging molten metal and falling debris. She fell multiple times, scraped, burned, and bruised. She wanted to scream, but she had no strength. Yet every time she hit the ground, she forced herself to rise. She had learned something essential. The vault was relentless, but humans were unpredictable. She could not rely on strength or size, but she could rely on ingenuity, determination, and sheer refusal to give up. Every creature that attacked learned that lesson. Every obstacle became a part of her. Every wound reminded her she was alive. By the end of the relentless attack, Myra leaned against a shattered wall, bloodied, exhausted, but standing. The creatures retreated, whispering among themselves in fear and confusion. The vault had tried to break her. It had tried to kill her with everything it could muster. And yet, she was alive. Myra closed her eyes for a brief moment, her chest heaving. Pain pulsed through her, but she smiled faintly. The vault had underestimated the human spirit. It had thought she would break. It had thought she would be prey. But Myra had proven something that no monster, no wall, no prison could ever forget. A human does not die because the odds are against them. A human survives because they refuse to surrender. And the vault, ancient and calculating, recognized for the first time that it faced a force it had never anticipated: courage. Myra took a deep, shuddering breath. She knew the vault would continue to test her. There would be more creatures, more traps, more dangers, but she also knew she had already changed the rules. She had survived where none had before. She had faced the impossible and refused to die. And that alone was enough to terrify everything that called the vault home. The vault had fallen silent for the first time since Myra arrived. Its creatures watched from the shadows, uneasy and confused. Myra, battered and bleeding, leaned against a cracked wall. Her body screamed in pain. Every step she took felt heavier than the last. Her leg throbbed, her arms ached, her hands were raw from fighting. And yet she had survived. Somehow, against all odds, she had survived. But survival was not enough. She had to find a way out, or at least a way to let the outside world know she was alive. Somewhere deep in the lower levels, a faint hum called to her. The vibrations felt different from the vault itself, stronger, older, a pulse of energy that hinted at control. Myra forced herself to move toward it, every agonizing step a test of willpower. The corridors narrowed. Rusted machinery and broken cables blocked the path. Shadows twisted and flickered around her. Something moved just beyond her vision, a long, sinewy form with glowing red eyes. Myra froze, the creature hissed, then darted away, vanishing into the darkness. She did not have the energy to fight it. She kept moving, one step, then another. Pain was everywhere, but giving up was not an option. Finally, she reached a chamber unlike the others. The walls were smooth, metallic, etched with symbols older than any human history. In the center stood a console, blinking softly with a faint green light. A single word flashed on its screen: external signal, disabled. Myra's heart pounded. She staggered toward it, ignoring the pain in her leg. She touched the console, her fingers trembling. The buttons were warm under her touch, humming with energy. For a moment she closed her eyes and imagined the station above, the humans she had known, the life she had barely survived. Her hands hovered over the controls. If I fail, no one will ever know what happened here. She pressed the first button. Nothing. The vault hummed, almost mocking her. She pressed another. The lights flickered. Then finally a green glow spread across the console. The external signal was active. Somewhere far above the vault, alarms screamed. Orion 9's control room erupted in chaos. "We are receiving a signal from the vault," the commander shouted, disbelief in his voice. Technicians scrambled. Satellites and sensors locked onto the source. The impossible had happened. A human inside the Abyss vault had called for help. Myra didn't have time to celebrate. The vault noticed immediately. Metal groaned, corridors shifted, walls moved. The creatures surged back into the hallways, faster and angrier than ever. The vault itself seemed to roar, unleashing a wave of gravity pulses that threatened to crush her. Sparks flew, and molten metal hissed as it hit the floor. Myra stumbled, barely holding the console. Her fingers worked faster, pressing every button she could find. The signal had to reach Orion 9 before the vault crushed her completely. Her body trembled, sweat mixing with blood. She gritted her teeth and whispered to herself, "Just a little longer, just a little longer." A massive shadow lunged from the ceiling. Myra barely rolled aside, scraping her back on the metal floor. The creature hissed, then froze, sensing something it could not understand, the pulse of human determination, the indomitable will to survive. Myra swung a metal bar she had picked up earlier. Sparks flew as it connected. The creature shrieked and backed away, giving her precious seconds. Finally, the signal was fully activated. Myra felt a strange relief wash over her. Outside, the rescue teams had been alerted. Ships scrambled toward the vault. The human station above was coming for her. But the vault was not done. Its response was immediate and violent. Doors slammed, corridors shifted, and gravity increased in unpredictable surges. The walls themselves seemed alive, ready to crush anything inside. Myra gritted her teeth and rose to her feet. Every muscle burned, every wound throbbed, but she could not stop. She had sent the signal. She had fought the impossible. She was a human, and humans did not give up. The creatures hesitated, sensing the incoming help. Some retreated. Others snarled, confused by the sudden change. Myra knew she had only bought herself time. The vault would strike again. It would test her limits beyond anything she had faced. She looked at the console one last time. A faint smile crossed her face despite the blood and sweat. "I am alive, and they are coming." For the first time in the Abyss Vault's long history, a human had beaten the odds, the monsters, and reached the heart of its power. The Vault had underestimated her. It had thought her small, fragile, and powerless. But Myra had proven them wrong. Myra stood alone as the Vault erupted around her. The corridors shifted, walls groaned, and the gravity pulses threatened to crush her at every step. The creatures, more organized and terrifying than ever, poured from every shadow. Hundreds of eyes glowed in the darkness. Claws flashed. Teeth gleamed. The vault itself seemed alive, trying to swallow her whole. But Myra did not falter. Her body was battered. Every wound burned with pain. Her leg throbbed, her arms ached, her hands were raw and bloody. She had fought for days, yet she still stood. Every muscle screamed for rest, but she refused. This was the final test, the ultimate challenge. The vault had unleashed everything it had, and Myra had only one choice: survive. She ducked as a massive creature lunged from the ceiling, claws tearing through the metal wall behind her. Myra swung her metal pipe, striking it across the skull. Sparks flew, and the monster fell, screeching. Another came from the side, jaws snapping. She rolled aside, barely avoiding death, then thrust the pipe forward, piercing its chest. It collapsed. Myra's movements became instinctive, almost mechanical. She dodged, struck, ran, and struck again. Every attack was precise, fueled by desperation and determination. The vault sent fire, gravity waves, and collapsing ceilings. Debris rained down, cutting her, bruising her, but she pushed forward. There was no stopping. There was no retreat. She fought through the corridors, every step a battle. Her breathing was ragged, her vision blurred, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. The creatures were relentless, but something had changed in them. They feared her, not because of strength, but because of the human will that refused to die. The vault had never seen anything like it. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning in this chaos. Myra found herself in the central chamber of the vault, the heart of its power. The creatures converged, surrounding her from every angle. She was alone, outnumbered, exhausted, and yet she smiled faintly. She remembered every lesson, every instinct. Humans survive not because they are strongest, but because they refuse to give up. And she refused. The first strike came from above, a massive shadow, larger than any she had faced. Its claws could have crushed her skull. Myra ducked, rolled, and thrust the pipe with every ounce of her remaining strength. Sparks flew. The creature screeched and recoiled. She lunged, using its momentary hesitation to strike again. It fell. Another came, then another. She moved like a force of nature, dodging, countering, and striking with precision. Her wounds screamed, but she did not stop. Pain was no longer an enemy. It was a reminder that she was alive, that she could fight, that she could survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the corridors went silent. The remaining creatures hesitated, then retreated, whispering among themselves. The vault pulsed once, twice, then seemed to shrink back, as if acknowledging defeat. Myra, broken, bloodied, and trembling, stood alone in the ruins. Her chest heaved. Her vision was blurred with sweat and tears. Every muscle ached. Her body was almost spent, and yet she stood. The rescue teams had arrived, blasting into the upper levels. Soldiers ran past, stunned to see a single human standing atop a mountain of fallen monsters. They stared at her in disbelief, but Myra barely noticed. She had survived the impossible. She had the vault itself. A faint smile touched her lips. She did not need medals, fame, or recognition. She had proven something far greater, that a human, small and fragile though she might seem, could overcome even the most impossible odds. Somewhere deep within the abyss vault, the walls whispered in fear. Not of monsters, not of fire or steel, but of a human. Myra collapsed to her knees, tears mingling with blood. She had fought, she had endured, she had survived. The vault had underestimated her, and she had won. Alone, against all odds. She looked up at the soldiers and whispered almost to herself, "Humans survive." And for the first time in centuries, the vault fell silent, not because it had killed, but because it had learned fear. Fear of something it could never control. Myra had done what no one else could. She had turned the prison that no one escaped into a battlefield she alone had conquered. And in that silence, she realized the truth that would echo across the galaxy. Humans are not weak. Humans are not fragile. Humans survive. Humans endure. And Myra, alone but undefeated, had proven it.